Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome to Sew with Vicky. And on today's video, we are going to be making this lovely, beautiful black corset. I took you guys along with me with this video. It's very detailed, and then I also made a video on how I did the lower part, although it wasn't so detailed because I lost some clips. But yeah, the corset video is very detailed. Corset tutorial is very detailed, and I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope you learn a thing or two. And yeah, let's get into the video. And please, if you have not subscribed, please do make sure to subscribe. We just hit 2,000 subscribers. Yay! Thank you guys so much for subscribing. So let's get into the video. Then we are going to be placing our tape on the pattern paper to show you the measurements. So for our chest line, we have 8 inches, bust line 10 inches, on the bust 13 inches, waistline 16 inches, and hip line 25 inches. Next, we are going to be going down by 1 inch on our shoulder slope, and then for our armhole, we are going to be dividing it into two. So half of 7 inches is 3.5 inch. So we're going to mark that. Next, we are going to be marking our neck depth. So I just placed my tape, and then we're going to be marking 7 inches for our neck depth. You can go a little lower, like around 7.58 inches if you choose. So next, I'm going to use my curved ruler and then just curve out the neckline. Moving on, we are going to be marking our nipple to nipple measurement. So I'll be placing 3.5 on the neckline, right? And then we'll also go down to the bust line and mark the 3.5 inches. Also on the under bust, 3.5 inches. The waistline, 3.5 inches. And the hip line, 3.5 inches. Now we're going to just roll along those lines. First, before we roll along those lines, we'll be taking our bust dart, which is the 1 inch on both sides on the under bust, waistline, so 1 inches on both sides, and then on our hip line we'll be going ½ inch on both sides. Please take note of that. On the neckline, also on the 3.5 inch mark, we are going to be marking 1 inch on both sides. And now we'll go ahead and rule and connect those lines together. First, we'll be connecting the lines of the 3.5 inches. And then we'll go ahead and connect the 1 inch lines, which is the line on the under bust and waistline. And then we'll be connecting the lines from the waistline to the hip line. And then from the bust line to the under busts also, we are going to be doing that using a curved ruler. And next we'll be connecting the bust line to the chest line. So the bust darts, that's what we call that particular darting, right? So we're just going to connect those lines, connect that to the bust line. Next, we will be adding our body measurements. So starting with the chest line, I'm adding my bust measurement, which is 8.5, and then that's that allowance we took for the bust. That I made a total of 1 inch, so that was 9.5 for the measurement on the chest line. So you're just going to basically add your bust measurement plus the dart allowance, and that will be what you would mark on your chest line. Moving on to the bust line, the same thing, we have 8.5 for the bust line, and then for the dart line on that bust area, although is a little less than half inch, I decided to make use of half inch, and then you are going to add 1 inch. I'll explain later, you will see later what we'll be making that's what we're using it to do on the front pattern, right? So moving on to the under bust, you'll be adding your waistline measurement plus the 2 inches you took for your dart, and then extra 2 inches. So in total you are going to be adding 4 inches to your waistline measurement. Please take note of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark that. Okay, moving to the under bust, we'll be placing the same measurements that we have on our under bust on our waistline, which is our waistline measurement, 2 inches for the bust dart and extra 2 inches for that. Later you will see where we would make use of that dart later. Okay, moving on to the hip line, right? So I added my hip line measurement plus the 1 inch that we took for that, and then extra 1 inch that we'll be making use of later. Okay, so your hip line measurement, 1 inch for that, and extra 1 inch we'll be making use of later, so take note of that. Next, we are going to be joining those lines together. So you're just going to get my ruler and roll it up. Next, on our under bust line, right, so we have 6.5, as you can see, we have 6.5 inch, so half of 6.5 inch, which is 3.25, so that's where I'm marking. So on that 3.25 mark, I'm just going to place my ruler and just rule along from my chest line to my hip line, right? So you can see what I'm doing right here. Now we are going to be placing in our second set of darts. Okay, this is where we'll be using those extra 2 inches and 1 inch that we added earlier. So on the under bust line, we are going to be placing our tape on that line and adding 1 inch on both sides. Okay, and then we'll be doing the same thing on the waistline. So we are going to be adding 1 inch on both sides on the waistline also. For the hip line, we are adding half inch. Remember, it's 1 inch that we added extra, so we're adding half inch on both sides on the hip line, and then we're just going to use our ruler and connect that. Remember, on the bust line we added extra 1 inch. You will see where the 1 inch will come in, because you know we will be angling our darts. So right now, as you can see, I'm ruling my under bust to my waistline, and then from the waistline to the hip line. So we're just going to be connecting those dots that we have now. Next, we are going to be connecting a line between our under bust to our chest line. You can see where I am marking, pointing my finger at, right? So we're going to be angling our ruler towards the chest line from the under bust. So we're just going to rule. And this is what we have for our front pattern piece. You are also going to go ahead and number your pattern pieces so that you are not confused. So now for the back, I'll be placing my tape for my chest line, my bust line, my waistline, and my hip line. 22-inch mark. Please ignore it, that line is a mistake. Please ignore that line. So our hip line here is 25 inches, just like the way we have in the front pattern. Now for our shoulder slope, we'll be going down by 1 inch, and then we'll go ahead and divide the armhole just like we did for the front pattern piece. Okay, so we have 3.5 inches for the division of our armhole. Next, for our neckline depth, we will be marking 9 inches. We would go ahead and rule and connect those two dots together. On our chest line, we are going to be marking 3.5 inch for our nipple to nipple measurement, and then also we would go on our hip line also and place our nipple to nipple measurement, which is 3.5 inches. Okay, and then on that line we are going to be going in by ½ inch on both sides. Okay, so we are going to connect those two dots, which is a 3.5 inch dots, and then angle the ½ inch on both sides to the chest line. Next, we will be adding our body measurements. So right here on our chest line, you'll be adding your bust measurements plus ½ inch for that line and an extra ½ inch. So your bust measurement plus ½ inch for your that line and an extra ½ inch, making 1 inch in addition to your bust measurement. On the bust line, you are going to be doing the same thing. Your bust measurement, okay, plus ½ inch and then an extra ½ inch for your darts. On the waistline, you are going to be adding your waistline measurement. My measurement is 7 inches plus 2 inches, so 1 inch for your dart and an extra 1 inch, so that is your waistline measurement plus 2 inches. Okay, next on our hip line measurement, we are going to be adding your hip line measurement plus the 1 inch you took for the dart and an extra 1 inch for the second set of darts. Now I'm going to go ahead and rule in my lines. On our waistline, we are going to place our tape, and then you can see the way I'm placing my tape. We have 5 inches there, so half of 5 inches is 2.5, so that's what I marked. So now you're going to be placing your ruler on that 2.5 inch and rule across from your neckline to your hip line. Next, on our hip line, we are going to be placing ½ inch on both sides. We're connecting those two dots to our bust line. After that, I'll go ahead and shade where we'll be cutting out and also take in 1 inch on our center back. So we are going to be cutting that out, and then we'll number our pattern paper. So this is what our front pattern piece and our back pattern paper piece is looking like. Moving on to the sleeve. So right here I have my basic sleeve pattern, and then to cut for the off shoulder look for the sleeve, we are going to be placing our tip on the cap of the sleeve and going down by 3.5 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark that, and then we'll just use our scissors and cut that out. So this is what our sleeve is going to be looking like. Moving on, right here I already cut on my fabric using my pattern pieces, right? So this is what the front pattern piece is looking like, and this is what the back pattern piece is looking like. Next, I already joined my front pattern pieces together because I'm using a net fabric and the crepe fabric. So you can see I cut with ½ inch, so that is what we had. I also later went ahead to trim off the ½ inch a little bit to make it a little smaller, because we are going to be sewing right sides facing up. So the wrong seams are going to be merging between each other. So when you turn the fabric to the back, there's no wrong seam there. So you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm placing the wrong seam, so the back facing the back, the wrong side facing each other. Okay, so for the net, we have the wrong side facing the wrong side of the crepe fabric. Now we're going to go ahead and use our bias tape and sew on our seam line. So that is also covering the seam line as well as making a boning channel for your corset. So we'll also be repeating the same thing for our front piece and also our back piece. Here I already did one line for the back piece, so I'm just showing you what it's looking like. So we have all our wrong sides covered up. Okay, so this is what the back piece is looking like. So you are going to join your front piece to your back piece, the net together and the crepe together, so that the side seam also for your front and back piece is also inside facing each other, so that once you turn your corset to the back, you don't have any wrong side. I will show you guys what I'm talking about. So right here, look at, I already joined the front piece of the pattern of the fabric to the back piece. You can see there is no seam showing. Okay, so both for your front and your back piece, all your wrong seams should face each other. So I advise you to join your net piece all together, both your the front and the back, and also the crepe to the front and the back, before you now place them together on their wrong side to start adding the bias tape to cover them up and also make your boning channels. Okay, so I already started making my boning channels right here, so I'll just go ahead and do that and also add my sleeve. And then before adding my sleeve, we are going to be running our bias tape at the hem of our tops. You can see what I did here. So we are going to be running our bias tape at the hem of the top of our corset. So for the neckline, that's what I mean, for the neckline of our corset. So right here, I covered the end of the corset using a black crepe. You can make use of doll face or whatever fabric that matches the design you are working with. So you can just make use of it. There's no particular fabric you should use, but I advise that if you are working with crepe, make use of crepe, and if you are working with doll face, make use of doll face. Do you get me? So next, I'm going to be showing you how to add this piece to your corset. Right here, there is no specific measurement I used to cut the black crepe, right? So measure that point where I'm pointing at right now to the end of your corset. So I think mine was around 3.5 inches. So I just placed it that way. You can see where I'm placing it. So I placed it right side facing it, and then I turned it over and top stitched on it, and then I turned it over also and turning in half an inch. So you can see what we have here. So that is what I did for this other part, right? And then I also made my boning channels. So now I have added my sleeve, and then I've also gone to add the end of our corset for the eyelets and boning. Okay, so I went ahead to fix my eyelets and also place the corset on my mannequin. So I forgot to film the parts where I cut out this waistline, but I'm still going to be cutting out a little bit more. So you can just cut this out depending on your waistline or what style you want to cut it. Remember, this is a corset dress also, so not too high, not too low. Do you get? So I'm just going to be cutting out a little bit because the person that is wearing this dress, corset dress, is a little petite. Okay, so I'm also just taking my chalk. You're just going to be creative with however you are cutting it, but be mindful, make sure not to cut it too short. Okay, so I'm just marking that, and then I'm going to use my scissors to cut out the lines are already made with my chalk. After cutting, I took the corset to the machine to add bias tape at the lower part of the corset to make the lines neat, to make it neat. Okay, so this is what it's looking nice, really nice and neat and pretty. Next, we are going to move on to the skirt part of it. Remember, I said earlier in the beginning of the video, I didn't film a detailed tutorial for the skirt part. So I think I had 3 yards of 2 yards of fabric, and then I took the center point of my fabric, as you can see, and then I added my zip line. Take note, I lined the net with a plain black net. Okay, so I just added the zip line and made sure that the top hem of the net, I sewed it inside, so everything was neat. So right now I'm going to be placing the zip at the center of the corset, which is where the eyelet is. You can see where I'm placing. I'm sorry that my camera is not well placed. I didn't know that my camera was not well placed. Please forgive me for that. So make sure and measure your corset to know that it's on your waistline, your exact waistline. Remember, on our pattern piece we had a waistline of 16 inches, so that 16 inches is where you'll be pinning that net. Okay, so I'm just going to be taking it round to the front piece, to the front part of the corset, and I'm just going to be pinning it. You'll be seeing what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go ahead and pin the other side also. Next, to the left side of the corset, I'm going to be gathering that net with my hand. I try to adjust my camera here, so I don't know if you can see. So I'm sort of gathering it with my hand, both of them, not just the right side. Okay, so but we'll be starting with the right side, the left side. So I'm just gathering it up. So I'm just using my hand to gather it a bit, and then I'm going to pin it. You are going to be doing a lot of needle and thread work here, so you can just gather it, go back, look at it if you like how it is. If you don't like it, you start over, and then that's what it is. So you can see what it's going to be looking like here. So I gathered both sides up, and then you can see what it's looking like. Although I went back to adjust it, you can see from the picture of the final look that I went back to adjust the waistline, like the depth of the front waistline, a little bit more. Okay, so you're just going to do that. Be creative with it, enjoy the process. And then yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to subscribe. Okay, please do make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.